Hello there and welcome to the Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley. My name is Drax de Dupre. I have a headache and a slightly stuffed nose. No, it's not from the cocaine. I don't take anything. Don't get me started.
It's Ebola.
Right, of course it is. I'm here with Joe Yardley. Hello, Joe.
Hello, Drax.
We're taping the show at an unusual time because I'm visiting a little-known virtual world company called Linden Lab tomorrow, and it occurs to me that they're not even in a real lab. They're in some brick building.
Yeah, I think they either have to change their name or they have to start wearing white coats because, seriously, it's not a lab. It's an office.
Right. It's an office with long-haired hippies and in unwashed shirts, I hear.
Yeah, I'm pretending to be cool by calling it a lab.
You need to come over and sweep that unwashed stuff out of there.
They need white coats and pocket protectors and things like that.
I have never been in these hallowed halls. You know, I'm planning on kneeling before the statue of Philip that they undoubtedly have there in front. Philip, our holy founder, and maybe I'll pray for about 15 minutes before going inside, or maybe I should not do that if I want to come back home without an arrest warrant. Anyway, so a big show today with old bees, folks who've been there, done that, and kind of left. But not quite all of them. We have Phoenix Saltery and Cat Congo. They ran the Metaverse Messenger from 2005 to 2009. We also have Dagmar Kohishi, who ran the education beat. We're going to be talking about the good old days of SL Media today. The Metaverse Messenger was published weekly, distributed throughout the grid. It was a really important newspaper in an ecosystem of news that was really vibrant at the time. We kind of don't have that anymore. So much more in a few minutes, but first couple of housekeeping notes. You know the drill. You can get in touch with us. We read everything, but we're slow to respond, and we apologize for that. But do ping the show's avatar Drax Files. Send us news scoops and press releases. Send us hate mail. On Skype, you can leave us a voicemail anytime on the Drax Files as well. The email is radio@draxfiles.com. You can support this show by either becoming a sponsor or visiting the sponsors with the banner on the right. Go and shop. Ping us if you'd like to advertise. You can be an individual sponsor by taking out a voluntary subscription of only $100 Linden per month. That's $25 Linden per show. You can subscribe on Stitcher and iTunes. Thank you so much for leaving a review. Now, Joe, this just in, there is a video called Trouble by the Waterside that came out a couple of days ago about a guy basically arguing for 6 minutes with another guy in Second Life, a landowner, who tells him to get off his land, and that's 6 minutes long, and it's just random argument. And it has over 130,000 views on YouTube in 2 days. And the best shows that I do have, maybe, a little one about 1920s Berlin, maybe has 12,000 views. What is going on?
It's probably quite simple. Someone mentioned it on Reddit or Twitter or somewhere else that's interesting as part of a discussion somewhere about how silly Second Life is. And griefing is fun, apparently. I mean, some of the videos really are fun, especially when people go absolutely ballistic over something quite small. I'll be completely honest. I've seen videos of griefers that make me laugh, even if I didn't want to.
I'm sorry. My theory is that if we it's the same with reality TV. If we watch sort of a train wreck on reality TV, we feel better about ourselves because there's people trashier than us on TV, and that's the same in Second Life, I think.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, there are a lot of weird people in real life and in Second Life, and I guess that if you that people are perhaps more interested in seeing the weird side of Second Life than the not so weird side. I mean, I love it, but I can imagine that that the average Joe is more interested in watching a video about some people doing some virtual hanky-panky while wearing donkeys' heads. They would rather watch that than me and my friends having a discussing a 1920s book.
I know, you're right. It signals the end of civilization as we know it.
Well, yeah, that started a little while ago.
All right, let's just move on because we have a really great conversation with the Metaverse Messenger folks that does not involve donkeys or elephants or whatever, or people arguing over land. Ebbe Altberg, Linden Lab CEO Ebbe Altberg, was in New York at the Engadget Expo and got some really good words in about Second Life on a panel about more uses than gaming for virtual reality, something like that, right? You blogged about it. Ebbe got some good words in. I mean, he reminded folks of SL.
You know, it's quite impressive that he managed to get quite a few words in.
Second Life is a product that's been around for 11 years, still going strong. It's the biggest, most successful virtual world that's ever been created to this date. And users in there use it to create all kinds of experiences, from entertainment to education to health to art, and all things in between. You have universities using it. Texas A&M is using it to teach chemistry to students in a virtual setting. So it's almost, you can create anything you can imagine. Everything in Second Life is user-generated. We're not in the content business. We're at a platform and a world with certain horizontal capabilities like virtual currency and communication tools, stuff like that. But all the experiences people go through are created by other users. So anyone can create whatever they want.
Used exactly the right sort of words to make people who haven't heard of Second Life or who think it's, you know, just a silly old place that everyone's forgotten about. He made them realize, you know, that it's big, that it's been around for a long time, that it has a massive economy, that it's used for education, entertainment, used by universities, you know, all those things that we try and tell people to make them realize that Second Life is more than what, you know, than all those silly articles written by media, and he knows it, and he got these, you know, points coming out like a machine gun, this and this and this and this, and he made quite a good impression.
Moving on to the feature section, we have a conversation with a trio of old bees today. Alan Seeger, also known as Phoenix Sultry in World, Kristen Page, a.k.a. Cat Congo, and Donald King, known as Dagmar Koishi in Second Life. These folks made media history with an important publication by the name of The Metaverse Messenger, a weekly newspaper distributed through the SL Grid in PDF form, a newspaper that tried to apply real-world journalistic standards to the virtual world. Joe, do you guys have I was just thinking of this, you guys should have something in 1920s Berlin, some kind of newspaper maybe.
We do.
Jesus, see, that's how well informed a radio host I am, and a resident of Berlin.
But it's not updated. It's news from 1929. And every day you can click a newspaper and it will give you a note card with the news of that day in 1929. And we also have lots of 1920s magazines and all, you know, exact replicas and reproductions and things like that. So it's more a history sort of thing than a proper news inform of things.
Yeah, but it stays within the realm of the parameters of the role play. That's awesome. Getting back to the Metaverse Messenger, it was a newspaper that tried to apply real world journalistic standards. We'll talk about it in just a second. But that's really, to me, what stood out, because the Alphaville Herald was a little satirical. The Avastar at the time, and we'll link to all these in case you have no idea what we're talking about. The Avastar was a tabloid. It was run by the German Bild Zeitung, by the way. They came in with big money.
Ach so.
Ja, tatsächlich.
Wunderbar.
That was before your time, Joe. It was crazy times. Ellen Seeger co-founded the Metaverse Messenger in August 2005 together with Kristen Page. He was the associate publisher. Kristen was the publisher. Ellen Seeger is also an author and editor and the proprietor of the 559 publishing company. Kristen, a.k.a. Cat Congo, is now, after her stint as the publisher of the Messenger, a full-time student at Texas A&M, pursuing a degree in psychology, but she's also working on novels, poetry, and a short story collection. And lastly, Don King, who you will hear in this interview, he has been teaching communication studies at Pellissippi State Community College for over 20 years. And in Second Life, he was a reporter on the education beat under the name Dagmar Koishi. Now, what's going to happen in this interview, I mentioned it last week that Ellen founded a Facebook group by the name of Second Lifers for Life, kind of bring people together who had left Second Life but had become friends.
Oh, not just people who left. It's just people who've been there in the olden days, since the beginning, you know.
Yeah, that was, but his original intent, and it's really grown, you're right. I mean, it's grown to almost 1,000 members. The point was I kind of offended them a little bit by being dismissive. And I apologize.
Your usual self.
Well, I apologize for that, and I'll apologize in the following interview. And you hear this, Joe. So enjoy the conversation with Ellen, Don, and Kristen. Here's Ellen first updating us with his status of Second Life activities in the present time.
Since the demise of the Messenger in 2009, haven't really been in world as much as I used to be. My wife and I, we pretty much logged in at least a couple of times a week for the last several years, mainly together with friends, go to dance parties and listen to our friends that DJ. She logs in quite a bit to shop and stuff.
Then the cliche of the or the stereotype that is perpetuated in the mainstream media about Second Life, that you can do only two things: shop and dance. Is that correct? Is that true then?
Well, for me it was, and I would tend to log in once a week, gather up all my stipend money, and immediately send it to her.
Let me get Donnell in here. Donnell, is that how I pronounce your name?
It's actually pronounced Donald. It's the Scottish variant, and people who are named Russell don't get called Russell.
I'm European. Blame it on that. It's that air of the French culture that I just gave you, I suppose.
Oh, sure, absolutely. So, my name is Donald King. In real life, I was, and I guess technically still am, known as Dagmar Kojishi in world. I do have a background in media. I started working at a newspaper when I was 14 years old. In the last part of my life, I have been an educator, college educator for, And so my early interest in Second Life was in what we could do with it as an educational platform.
Very rude of me as the host to introduce the lady last. Please introduce yourself, Kat. Who are you? Who were you? Are you still who you were?
My interior is still the same. All of my personalities are fighting one another. In Second Life, I was known as Kat Congo, and in real life, my name is Kristen.
And Kat Congo came into Second Life when?
May 2005, I believe.
What was your role at the Metaverse Messenger together with Phoenix?
Phoenix and I started the Messenger together. I was looking for a way to make some money in Second Life so that I could go shopping.
We already covered the shopping part. Oh, God.
There's that motivation again.
Yeah.
You know, I dedicated my life to destroy stereotypes, but now I'm kind of reinforcing it. Please go ahead. Shoes or hair, or what was your fix?
I wanted my avatar to look good, I had my priorities straight. So, I was looking for something in Second Life, a way to make money that I enjoyed doing. And, I had been in newspaper work for a while, and I enjoyed it a lot. So, Alan and I talked about it, and we decided to start the paper. I was the publisher, so I kind of oversaw the total operations of it. And then I had other minor jobs as well.
This was a big operation. The Metaverse Messenger was distributed. How was it distributed? Tell us a little bit. You had kiosks on different sims.
Little newspaper boxes that looked just pretty much like a newspaper box that you would find anywhere in real life. And they were scripted so that if someone clicked on one of these boxes, it would take you to the download site where you could download the paper as a PDF file, which for many years was a little controversial. It seemed like you either loved the PDF format or you hated it.
Was there an issue with throwing you back out of the immersive experience? Because when you click on it, then you're out, then you're on the web.
To some extent, that's probably true. But, to me, it was like, well, if you're going to read it in World, in order for it to be legible, you're going to want to blow it up as big as possible. So you're going to be looking at it full screen anyway, whether it's in Acrobat or whether it's in Second Life. What's the real difference?
And you worked in an ecosystem back during that hype era. It was a pretty rich ecosystem with media. And I remember I talked to both of you for this one machinima I did talk to folks from SLCN and not the guy from the Avastar. He was not available, but the Avastar came in with a lot of money. What was the relationship with all these other media outlets? I mean, there were several TV stations. There was street TV, newspapers, all sorts of things at the time.
It was pretty much as close to a real life experience as you can get, with competing newspapers, competing television stations. I have to just call it what it really was, the good old days of SL Media.
you have to remember that we were one of the first. Really, the only one that came before us was the Herald.
The Alphaville Herald?
Yes.
Originally, the Alphaville Heroes, yeah.
So before a lot of these other media sources came in, we already had a very solid readership. I don't want to brag.
Totally can. This is you're absolute right. I'm very impressed.
And let me say, as an educator in journalism, that it impressed me that they had done such a good job of putting together I want to say a real life newspaper. This newspaper functioned within that culture of Second Life exactly the way a newspaper in a town would function. And they were doing actual news. It wasn't fluff. It wasn't people pretending to do a newspaper. They were following journalistic ethics, journalistic integrity.
Did you, Donald? Did you use this as an example with students? Actually, what can be done, in a virtual world? Maybe how to get your feet wet.
Absolutely. We had interns from our college. Student writers are required in one particular class. They must write for, traditionally it has been the college newspaper, but we gave them an option, and several of them took advantage of it, of writing for the Metaverse Messenger. We encouraged them to do so and to hold on to their clippings. I have no idea how many of them at this point did so.
Kat, you said, the golden days of SL Media. I mean, there was certainly a lot more interest, maybe possibly more to write about, although I would, if you were to say that, I would counter that, because I'm in world every day, and I wish there would be people who would have the time to cover all this stuff. Did you guys also cover the relationship between Linden Lab? In what was the relationship with them? Were you covering them critically? You know how it is. I mean, people get either accused of being a mouthpiece for them, or they're being dismissed and just sort of tearing everything apart that they do. There seems to be no middle ground, at least right now.
The goal in reporting is to report without any sort of bias. So that was the goal that we had. If somebody had an issue with Linden Lab, we would go and we would interview, and we would write exactly what was said to us. We wouldn't spin it in any shape or form. It was just what they said, and people could read it and decide for themselves. We weren't trying to steer anybody into deciding anything.
I'm amazed. You said this earlier, but let me just then express my amazement that you seem to actually have ethics in that profession, even in a world that doesn't even exist. It is shocking to me.
If you want to have a good relationship with readers and build that readership, then you have to be trustworthy. You have to build that reputation and continue to grow it. And if you lose that, then you lose your readership.
Real quick about the relationship with the other entities. Was there must have been some sort of competition, at least, like, let's say, in the, not necessarily with the TV stations, but with the other newspapers. And was there some bad blood when the Avastar came in with, I don't know how much money they had. I mean, let me remind folks, the Avastar was a subsidiary of the German tabloid Bild-Zeitung. I'm from Germany originally. And Bild-Zeitung, I don't know how much they invested, several millions for sure. And they came in there and they focused on the tabloid aspect, because they have a tabloid entity as the parent company.
That's like an apple being jealous of an orange, or being in competition with an orange. They're two separate, different things. When you want an orange, you have an orange. When you want a banana, you have a banana. We did what we did, and we did it well. And the Avastar did what they did, and they did it well. They were entertaining. They had a good thing going, and that didn't detract from us at all.
Maybe Donald wants to jump in here, because I do observe, though, and it's great that you say that, Kat, but in the real world, in the physical world, I do observe a kind of a lowering of the bar, which is being pushed by tabloid entities, or entities that are just entertainment. And I see, unfortunately, that really the serious news business is sort of succumbing to that pressure and fluffing their own stuff up just to compete with them.
There's an interesting aspect about competition there. Of course, I have a bias just in viewing it from the standpoint of media in the United States, as I know Phoenix and Kat do also. 30 years ago in a typical U.S. city, you would have at least 2 newspapers, and they kind of kept each other honest, just because of the factors that Kat was talking about, that if you lose the trust of your readership, they've got somewhere else they can go. As we've seen media consolidation all across, I mean, there's only 5 companies that own about 80 to 85% of all the media in the United States. So in that lack of competition, it does become easier to get, for lack of a better term, lazy in the news approach, because where else are they going to go? Now, there is this thing within media studies, and I don't know how this would affect Second Life. For over 100 years, people have spent about 5% of their disposable income on media of some sort. Late 1800s, that meant newspapers and magazines. And then came radio, and then came television and movies, and now we've got the internet. People still spend about 5% of their income. That might come across in SL terms as time that you would invest. So I could see where there could be some competition in the sense of, I've only got so much time. Am I going to watch this in-world TV show, or am I going to read this in-world print publication? Of course, thanks to the internet, the divisions between print and broadcast and all those kind of things are fuzzing up anyway. The Metaverse Messenger came into play in the midst of all of that, and in some ways contributed to it. I'm one of those who liked the PDF format, although I talk with Kat about alternative formats just to try to serve more readers. I like the PDF because I'm a print guy. I like being able to control the layout. But that's very unusual among media consumers these days.
But Donald, you say something. I'm glad you say that, because the lack of newspapers, especially on the local level, is really corrosive to democracy. There's a lot of stuff that is not reported, a lot of stuff that is underreported, a lot of stuff that is just copying the press release. Local newsrooms under such pressure. How can we, if we step away from Second Life, do you have a silver, since I have you on, what is the silver bullet? How can we go back? Because there were attempts, with websites and some localized websites that harness the power of people that live in these communities and then write somehow, maybe even pro bono or for very little. How can we bring this back, this diversity that was once normal here in the U.S.?
Well, my long-term hope is that as the technology continues to develop, that will come back around, but maybe not through professional journalism. Put it this way. Again, late 1800s, you had power of the press, literally the press, because that stinking thing cost so much. You couldn't just go out and start your own newspaper. These days, because of the internet, we know the newspapers are struggling. The lack of competition leads exactly to the effect on democracy that you're talking about. There's economic pressure to not cover the news because covering the news is expensive. It's just a whole lot easier to do stories about pet shows and stuff. Not to put that down, but that's predictable. It doesn't take a whole lot to cover that. What I see developing these days is something called citizen journalism, which I'm sure you're familiar with. The problem there is that the people who are practicing the citizen journalism have not been trained in journalism. And so as this continues to develop, I hope in 50 years people will have figured out how to make a living somehow, and at the same time, perhaps through journalism, but if not, then on the side, the way Benjamin Franklin used to do it, to actually have the skills to ask the hard questions of our politicians, of our culture, of our society.
If we bring this dilemma of the press, of the diversity, of the economic pressures, what we're facing now in the real world, let's talk about the metaverse as it may come into the future, run by any which company or a bunch of companies, or maybe it's completely open. How can we secure that there's a functioning press in that new world? I mean, Linden Lab is doing Second Life 2.0. Right now, the status in Second Life is there's very little press, but there really isn't something as substantial as just good old-fashioned journalism where it takes time, to really look at the sources and write something up. We will go forward into a future of virtual reality where there will be a parallel universe, a metaverse of some sort. Maybe Facebook is building it. Maybe Linden Lab has another shot with SL 2.0. But how do we secure that it's not going to be a monarchy or a dictatorship in the worst case?
That's exactly the problem, especially in like a virtual world like Second Life. Everything is controlled by Linden Lab. So, when the Metaverse Messenger started, there was no source of news. If you wanted to learn what was going on in the virtual world, you came to a publication like the Metaverse Messenger. But now Linden Lab has their website. They have different methods of publicizing what's going on in Second Life. Publications like the Metaverse Messenger aren't needed anymore.
So, Alan, you said the Metaverse Messenger stopped in 2009, and you hinted earlier, you said it kind of was your fault, or you said something like that, or what was the reason you gave up? I mean, I can only imagine how labor-intensive it is, and then how little money comes out at the other end to make a living.
Well, it had to do with my health. I experienced kidney failure in 2009, or actually 2008. I tried to see if I could keep up the workload, but it was just too exhausting. So finally, during my hospitalization, which was about 6 weeks, I finally decided that it was something I couldn't continue to do.
And that's been some time. How are you doing now?
I'm doing much better. I'm actually a full-time student now and have a growing career as an author. I've got 5 books out and working on more. There's a science fiction trilogy called the Gate Space Trilogy, and then there's a couple of books of essays and short stories and things, short story anthologies, principally one called 13 Bytes, which we have actually now done 2 of those. Those come out each October.
I'm going back and forth here, but let's stick for a moment again with journalism and how important it is in the online space. Let's just brainstorm how can you ensure in the future metaverse? You mentioned Facebook. Facebook bought Oculus. Everybody is talking about how very soon Facebook will be Face World or whatever it will be, and then ads are running around, and then Facebook controls everything. I'm on the record as not a big fan of Facebook at all for many, many reasons. Chief among them is their market dominance and their algorithm sort of controlling what we actually see. When you imagine Facebook in the future making the de facto virtual world, the metaverse that Linden Lab always wanted to do, how can we ensure that there is diversity in media?
Well, if you go back to one of my very early op-ed columns in the M2, from probably as early as the second or third week of our publication, one of the things that I envisioned was that the future metaverse would involve lots of different companies, all creating their little slice of the virtual world, so that you might wake up in the morning, so to speak, log in to Second Life, and your avatar would then fly across the grid, and when it got to the border, it would cross over maybe into Yahoo World, or, God forbid, AOL land, or something like that.
People throw with CDs at you. Woo-hoo.
Exactly. If you've ever read Snow Crash, in Snow Crash, Neil Stephenson talks about people's avatars in the metaverse varying in quality, from the very elaborate and very attractive ones to the poor people that can't really afford an account, and so just use freebie avatars, which basically look kind of like, he almost describes them like stick figures or something like that. And I keep imagining that sort of thing. You fly from one place to the next and see all these different types of avatars and all these different qualities of avatars. And I always found that to be fascinating. Just the entire idea of a cooperative metaverse.
But when you talk about this, is interesting. You bring up Snow Crash, but for me, Snow Crash was also painting an extremely dark future with a lot of corporatization and with a lot of different, all these suburbs that are controlled with their own police force, and that privatization, which I find a little bit dangerous. In Germany, for instance, the big difference between Germany and the United States, and that was set up by the Americans, a dual system of public broadcasting that is really well financed. The public broadcasting system has bureaus all over the world. And I always say in America, you have very good media. You have to really search for it. In Germany, you have the media up front and center. That means even the dumbest doofus who is only interested in baseball. I hope I don't offend anybody. Baseball is fine, but if you obsess about it, to the lack of any other intellectual endeavor, I think you're screwed. So even this guy in Germany gets 15 minutes of good international news when he switches on the telly. In America, it's a lot harder to cut through this other crap that distracts you to the really good stuff. So what am I trying to say? Maybe some sort of public finance broadcasting system in a metaverse of the future would maybe work with a voluntary fee or something, or maybe with a tax.
Or even, in other words, if the Lindens, for example, had looked at us and said, hey, you guys have got a really good thing going. Why don't you let us help you cover the costs? I don't know how I would have felt about it.
But they might have had some substantial influence then.
They could have, exactly. You cover the cost, but then also you give up a little bit of control in order to gain that. And that's something I'm not sure I would have been willing to do.
But what you could have done, sorry, I got to say this, I just had the genius idea, Alan, because if Lindenlab would have come to you and said, hey, we're going to finance this thing, for you just needed to have hired Prokofiev Neva for a column. So
wash your mouth. That was soap.
No, never.
The newbies that listen to our podcast, they don't know who Prokofiev is. Let me just say, you have to read her blog. The first page is acute intellectual analysis. To me, this is my personal opinion. I always find the first paragraph extremely intelligent analysis, and then it trails off into complete madness and name calling. And it's really interesting. Is it not interesting? Come on, she has a grasp on what's going on, but then she ends up in a complete crazy thing.
That says something about the nature of media right there.
Right, the first sentence that Bill O'Reilly utters sometimes is also coherent.
Yeah.
And so people know this about her, and they still read her.
They do. Yeah. That's true. That's true. Perhaps at this point, it's a good time to say, Catherine, if you're listening to this, we don't really hate you.
I will have her. I hope to have her on. I will dare.
Go for it. She's, it's interesting. We went to the one of the Second Life community conventions, the one in Chicago in 2007. I had the chance to spend more than a few minutes talking to Prokofiev there in the bar, and it was really kind of refreshing at how normal she seemed. And you get off into reading her journalistic activities, and it's like, okay, is this the same person that I met?
What you bring up about Proc is really kind of emblematic of the entire Second Life experience. People can be who they choose to be, and that's true of Second Life, that's true of blogs, that's true of Facebook. I mean, heck, it's true at our jobs. People are not the same people with everybody. What struck me about this was I happened to see an interview with George Hamilton IV, the now elderly actor in his 70s, and he made the comment that he was always playing a role that people, and he wasn't just talking about being in a movie, he was talking about in an interview, he was talking about appearing on the red carpet. He was in a role. So I think there's a good chance that Proc is in a role. I've heard that same kind of thing about Rush Limbaugh, for example, that he has adopted a persona for a certain effect on radio, and that in person he seems to be a very intelligent person.
with the difference that Rush Limbaugh is, I think, in my opinion, is really damaging and corroding the discourse.
Oh, sure. And it could very well be that Proc is also, but, my point is that we choose our roles, we choose how to come across. So it's no surprise that would happen in Second Life, which fosters that kind of thing.
I'm so glad you brought it up, because my video series is really, one of the subtexts is always that the question, if an environment like Second Life, where we can reinvent ourselves and we can be whoever we are and we can bring the best out of us, is it conducive to actually cutting through the crap and really showing the true inner self, who we really are? I mean, I covered the stories that I covered, they are kind of that. I'm not denying that there's others, that there's an ugly side to this, but I want to ask each one of you, isn't that still one of the most powerful aspects, that, let's say, someone who is physically disabled, let's say in real life, can be free of this? Is that even real, that we can do that, or is that just a pipe dream?
I think it's real, and I think that's one of the best selling points for Second Life, one of the best reasons to be there. You strip away the exterior, everything that people would normally use to judge you on when they first see you. He's blind, I don't know how to act around that person, so I'm going to avoid him. All of those sorts of things are stripped away, and interact with people based only on their personality. You like or dislike somebody only based on their personality. And Second Life is so good for exploring exactly what your personality is and exactly who you are.
Donald, you said something which is interesting, where I thought at our job, but I think you meant that we play different roles in different situations, right? Like, you're a teacher, you're playing this role in front of the classroom. You're obviously different when you go out with your family to dinner or something like that.
To a greater or lesser degree, consciously so. I think most of us do that kind of thing unconsciously.
So let me then say something which I should have said maybe at the beginning. I am sorry that I posted in the Facebook group, because I went in there, and Alan, you started this Facebook group, and there's a lot of people came in there who haven't been on Second Life for a very long time, haven't been in World. Some of them go in there occasionally, and I come in there and I post like, well, isn't this weird? Here's a Facebook group of people. And the reason why I was taken aback a little bit is, obviously, I'm in Second Life every day. I'm so passionate about it. I see so much creative stuff. And what bugged me was that some people, out of the 800 plus people, 2 or 3 people, have interacted with me a little bit as if they were the greatest way back when. And I just, this rubs me the wrong way in general. It does in real life, it does in any situation. Like, before you present yourself as the king of whatever you think you are, look at what these other people are doing. A little humility would do good. So that's the reason why I posted that. But in essence, there is a lot of people who found each other and left Second Life for whatever the reason was. Not necessarily they were disgruntled or didn't see the purpose anymore. They just moved to a different place in their life. But they're still friends. And I guess that's the purpose also of this group.
Yes, that was really the whole thing. Initially I started thinking here a couple of weeks ago about all the people that we know in Second Life that we don't get to see anymore. And while we could still log in anytime we want to, some people can't for various reasons.
Right. Jenny actually posted she lives in a rural area. There's no way, her internet connection is so bad. Some people have no machines and stuff like that.
And in some cases, people's technology just hasn't kept up with what Second Life requires. There's a person in the group that said that she wanted to log in yesterday and discovered that it simply would not run anymore. And so people were giving her advice about using SL Go.
SL Go, we're sponsored by them. Ooh, Ellen, you said SL Go. Now I'm gonna get.
I said the magic word.
Yes. Wait a minute. Let me check my bank account. Ooh, there it is.
Do we get a share in that?
Of course.
We should. Let's just keep saying it. SL Go, SL Go.
What is SL Go?
Oh, funny you asked me. This is like the Howard Stern show. Heineken is very good.
Commercial time. Go ahead.
SL Go basically renders Second Life in the cloud and streams it down to lower end devices, and it is really magical. They somehow managed to stream it down, so when you interact, that stuff gets streamed to their server, it gets rendered there, and then what you see on your device is essentially a movie of your interaction in world that is so fast you don't see the difference. You see a little lag when you do shooting and stuff like that, like really fast paced, or maybe a racing game or something. Then you see it, but otherwise there is no noticeable lag most of the time. It runs on every old machine. It instantly upgrades any old machine. It runs on iPad, Android tablets. It's really crazy. I have 2 old MacBooks that never ran SL. I run SL Go on it. It just works, and SL Go sometimes looks better than on this PC. But that being said, there's a lot of improvement. Again, but the individual problem of the multitude of machines it's still the biggest obstacle for mass adoption with SL. There's no doubt.
Well, I might as well throw in, I know that, Alan mentioned what is essentially for him a first life problem. I had the same type of thing. It wasn't my personal health. I have a severely disabled daughter. Just between taking care of her and all of her needs and taking care of a demanding job in real life, it wasn't a disgruntlement with Second Life, although I will admit to being ticked off with how things went with the education community.
We can touch on this right now, Donald, if you'd like to. Tell me your point of view. What happened was that they basically raised the prices.
For me, it was a complex of things. There was the price change, but there also was... they had somebody who was a liaison for the education folks. When they let Pathfinder Linden go, it just suggested to me that they simply were not oriented towards education as a viable consumer base, for lack of a better term. Now, philosophically, I don't have a problem with that. If they wanted to take their company in a direction of aiming at, Disney brats or something, that's fine. But it also meant that I was no longer their target group. It's almost that 5% thing I mentioned earlier about media. Only so much time, only so much money, have to make decisions about where to put the resources.
Exactly, because the coffee always costs $4, and if that is a must.
Yes.
This is an interesting topic with education. I want to hear your take too, Kat, and I'm also looking at the clock. If we have a few more minutes, that would be really great. I feel we're in the middle of a really good conversation. You're not mad, Donald, but I kind of am, because I think it was a mistake. And I talked to Ebbe Altberg, the current CEO, and Ebbe Altberg is on the record as saying that this was some stupid things were done. I'm paraphrasing now, with alienating the educational community with these various things, letting Pathfinder go and raising the pricing.
I'll throw in a perspective just real quick. Our college was an early adopter of Second Life. Our president was the one who was actually supporting it, which is a dream situation for a college. And after things just kind of, from our point of view, devolved, it would be a really, really tough sell for me to convince them to try it again.
Kat, let me bring you back in towards the closing. Why did you leave? Why are you not coming back? I know really great stores where you can shop. The mesh clothing is amazing.
You assume I've left. I haven't left. I'm not playing on Cat anymore, but I'm still in Second Life. I've gone to the dark side of things.
Second Life is not a game. You can't play it.
Okay.
She's in the
I'm having my 4th and 5th and 6th life in Second Life now. Cat was my Second Life. I've moved on.
Is that also something, Kat, because this is fascinating, is that something that is liberating for you when Kat is so, or was so tied up with the messenger and all this stuff that when you shed an avatar and you sign up, I mean, how does that feel? That's a liberating experience, like moving to another country, kind of.
Well, yeah, because when I was doing the paper, I couldn't be on Cat and not be working because people would, oh, you're Cat. Let me tell you about my store, or let me tell you about this project I'm working on. Or can you talk to the Lindens for me and see if they will do this for me? And, so yeah, I had to create another avatar to explore and to do the things that I wanted to do in Second Life.
But that's good. That's good to hear that you're still having fun.
Yeah.
This is funny. I get 2 IMs per day where people ask me, hey, my screen is black. What can I do?
Yeah.
So check the electricity.
Actually, you want to know the truth about Kat? She's in the witness protection program.
I see.
Yes. I received death threats from Proc.
We'll all get together in real life with a couple bottle of Jack Daniels, and we're good to go. Okay, any last words? Can I be back in the Facebook group that I left with my emotional outburst?
I will add you back in here shortly.
My last question now, there is this resurgence of virtual reality now. It's VR. Everything is VR. What do you guys think is the opportunity for Second Life and Linden Lab as an extension, if you will, with this new... It's not a hype yet, I suppose, but there's definitely virtual reality doesn't seem to be a dirty word anymore. So does Linden Lab have an opportunity here? The rising tide lifts all boats.
It's a different generation, so I mean that's certainly a realistic possibility.
I don't know. I would like to think that we more or less got in on maybe not the ground floor, because I met someone last night that first resident in 2002 and just... We were going, gosh, you're old. But it was one of the first really widespread VR programs that anybody really used that wasn't just all kinds of polygons and very simple shapes to have the ability to be a person, to be a realistic avatar.
But the question is it now already kind of with this new VR resurgence, is Second Life already just a footnote? I get upset sometimes when I see these guys and they have goggles and they have little demos and their demos look good and everything. But Second Life works with the Oculus as well. And, this is an entire world. This is a world versus a demo. This is a much bigger sort of philosophical experiment with interconnectedness and all that versus a singular game.
I think the thing that's always been missing is the fact that Linden Lab doesn't really do any kind of advertising.
The reason a lot of the younger generations don't know about Second Life is because previously you had the Teen Grid, and that was advertised, and that was targeted to young people. And they went from the Teen Grid to the main grid. And so you had that transfer of population. And now the Teen Grid doesn't exist anymore. And I'm not sure Second Life is advertised very much at all either.
Yeah, I don't think they do any, actually. Yeah, it's a good point.
Back in about 2006, maybe, they had a competition for machinima videos about Second Life.
But at that time, though, the hype took care of itself, no?
I think so, too.
Yeah,
I mean, I remember the infamous June 6th, 2006. Remember this, guys? 666 was when they opened up the grid and said, no more charge to become a resident. And oh my God, they came flooding. Mm-hmm. We sat there and watched the concurrency just bump up from week to week to week to week, to where we were going, pretty soon this place is going to be standing room only. And it never got that bad, but it was full of people that had no clue about anything. They had no clue about ethics. They had no clue about, hey, it's not nice to shoot each other.
Isn't that when we started getting a lot of the grid crashes too? Because it seems like before then we didn't really have any.
Yeah, to some extent. I think they became a lot more common. Mm-hmm. We had griefers before that. I just looked up our story about the time that those guys came in and set fire to our office building.
I I remember that.
Yeah. And I almost
fire 'em.
Yeah, and I almost got suspended because I tried to orbit one of them, and the Linden that came to take care of it said, you shouldn't have done that.
Wow, but they took they took enforcement seriously back then. I mean, now you can do whatever to somebody and nothing happens.
Those are the days. It was kind of like the Wild West.
Now it's Westworld.
we could
Without Yale Printer. Okay.
We could spend a whole episode talking about the good old days and what we missed from, back then.
And your word in God's ear, Kat, because I would very much welcome audio segments from Old Bees. I think we could play those every week. What do you think, listeners? Mail us some audio of your story. What happened to you? What was significant to you? It doesn't matter if you were in SL, if you're not anymore, or if you're still, or what is happening. We want to hear from Old Bees. We want to hear...
Why did you join? Why did you leave?
Right. Who set your building on fire? Drama. We want to hear drama stories.
Well, I'm personally, I'm just interested in stories also from newbies and old bees. I want to know why you joined a Second Life and why you left, or why you're still here. What made you stay and what made you go? That's all really.
Absolutely.
Don't tell us about your weddings and babies and.
No, why not? Tell us about your weddings and your virtual babies.
Tell Drax about your weddings.
We'll do a special show.
I just want to know why you left or stayed.
Listen, Joe, if the guy on YouTube gets 139,000 YouTube views in 2 days by posting a video of 6 minutes of arguing with a landowner, I want to get these ratings. I do whatever it takes to get these ratings. Talk about virtual babies with me. Come on.
It is about quality, not quantity. Go work for Sky News or whatever they call it these days.
So Ellen Seeger, Don King, Christian Page, we're linking to the Facebook group and a bit of an archive of the Metaverse Messenger as well as their personal pages. And we do hope that Ellen gets around to perhaps uploading all the rest of the Metaverse Messenger PDFs over time. This is the end of the show, Joe. What are you going to be doing? Anything interesting?
No, I never do anything interesting. I'm just going to hang around 1920s Berlin.
And wait what Linden shows up.
Yeah, geez. I mean, they're everywhere these days.
Maybe I should pipe you in when I'm at Linden Lab. If I would log on to Second Life from the Linden Lab offices.
Oh, right, yes. You mean come and visit me?
It's weird because we're taping this at a time when I don't know what's going to happen, but you, the listener, will listen to this when it already has happened. It's a weird time travel of sorts.
It's the magic of media, isn't it?
Yeah, the magic of media. We're taping this at a different time, and you're listening at a different time. How does this even work? It's like a virtual world.
Are you on drugs again?
No, I'm not. That's the problem, as we has established last time. Anyway, this weekend I will be binge watching Ole Etzel Machinima because Ole has come up with a new one. And Ole is one of my favorites. Everybody knows that. He has a new Mr. Bones film out. It's a very small community, the Machinima community, but he's one who is just pushing it, and it's awesome. We'll link it to the blog. Also, folks have maybe seen my little SL Go commercial. Unfortunately, Berlin is not seen in there. We originally shot it, but we took it out because we said, Joe is in every movie. We have to take her out, otherwise she gets too full of herself. No, that wasn't the reason.
It's impossible for me to, for my ego to get even bigger.
A sequel to this commercial is already in production, and it tells my story after losing my property and moving back into my dad's attic in a Munich suburb. Torley will be in it too. If you want to be part of this commercial, give me a ring and we'll put you in there. But meantime, go to slgo.onlife.com/Drax and sign up for a trial.
Oh, well.
We're going out today with Madame Thespian Underhill, a segment we played in show number 2, but since this is an old B show about the good old days, we have to replay it. Madame is an actor and director with the Artist Repertory Theater in Second Life. She's been in SL since 2002. She's still active, and she's also the subject of the upcoming Drax Files Worldmakers episode 24 coming in 2 weeks. So many old Bs today. Oh, it makes me feel so young. The music underneath this segment is from Juniverse Stockholm, also a great SL musician. Check him out when he plays in World. That's it for the show. Goodbye, Joe.
Auf Wiedersehen.
My name is Madam Thespian Underhill. I've been around since December 2002. I've been in the virtual 3D community even longer than that, since the mid-90s, when it was really, really cutting edge. I jumped from Active Worlds. We had to write our own code. There was no modeling program. So I saw Second Life advertised in Time Magazine. They did just a little teeny tiny article in Time Magazine about this new, virtual interface. And I was like, what's new about virtual interfaces? I've been doing them for a long time. And I went in, and as primitive as the world would seem now to us, I said, wow, these guys are way ahead of the game. In Active Worlds, you were given just a kind of a library of already ready-made primitives to work from, and you just cloned them and renamed them. There was a set number of shapes, and you couldn't edit the shapes at all. You had to build your objects from the shapes that were, and just put things together and sync things into other things to make it kind of look like something, like a chair or whatever. It took a day to design a couch. In contrast, Second Life had a modeler that was a WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. My home is on one of the original legacy sims called Clementina. I bought a land there before we went public, when we were still in beta, and I still have it. My house is still there. I'm right underneath the old governor's mansion. I'm guessing there may have been several hundred of us. The way the economy worked was that you were given a stipend every week. It was 1,000 lindens a week just for playing. If you logged in each week, you were given 1,000 stipends for that week. It quickly went down to 500, and that's where it is today for us charter members. We still get a 500 linden stipend a week. The mentor program, the very first one, was started by Char Linden, C-H-A-R Linden. She asked us to volunteer, about 20 of us who had been using the program and wanted to have around for when we went public to give classes on how to use the interface. We didn't have streaming, and we didn't have sound. We didn't even have scripted sound. It was all silent and texted. When we got sound, scripted sound was the first sound that came in. For the first time, people were just blown away. When we could actually upload sound bites, those 10-second sound bites that you're allowed to upload, that was a mind blower. So everybody started bootlegging music. The biggest problem, as always, was that griefers would find their way into these welcome sims, these greeting sims, and just be immature. The manager of that sim could bump them out before they had done too much damage. The landing port right there always had, 2 or 3 layers of avatars coming in. And nobody knowing what, when you're new, you don't know to just get out of the way. You land somewhere, if you're on top of someone, get out of the way. Everybody just stands there going, what's going on? What is this place? In real life, I'm a former professional actor from Chicago. I no longer do that on a regular basis, but I still love the theater, and I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to start doing theater in here in this new medium? So I did get involved in a Shakespeare company at first, when voice first came in, and then about a year after that, I joined the Avatar Repertory Theater Company, which still, after almost 7 years now, we've been working in the grid as a company, and we have our own theater and our own space on the Cookie Sim. My first love is building. I love to just fly around and look at what people are doing. Look at the art installations. I like the destination guide. I go in there, I kind of browse through it. Good grief, you could spend hours. And then I get inspired, and then I come back to my own personal sandbox and I start building. I have not lost my enthusiasm for Second Life. I've been doing this for 12 years, and I'm still continually fascinated by what you can do in Second Life, the creativity that I see, groups of people that I've been involved with as far as in the arts and literature and poetry and theater. It's just amazing. The friends that I've made, especially in the theater company that I've been with, we know each other. We know each other's families, about the families in our lives, and it's great. Oh, another thing I want to add is Linden Lab has a place, I don't know exactly where it is. It's called the Beta Memorial Wall. And they've chiseled into the stone all the original Beta members. And we're also on the original T-shirt. Yeah. There was just a few of us kind of experimenters with this. So we were all in this together. There was a very close sense of camaraderie, even with people you didn't know at all. You'd say hi to someone. An avatar you'd see flying around. Oh, hi. Now, you're in a store and you don't want to make eye contact with anybody if you go shopping because there's so many people and you just don't want to get dragged into a conversation or whatever,
The Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley is a weekly production of Basic Drax Entertainment. The show supported by Leap Motion, SL Go By On Live, Stitcher, Bot Girls Identity Circus, Carvel Design, Vicar Creations, Humanoid Animations, Escapades, Botanical, Death Row Designs, Angel Red Couture, Fallen Gods Incorporated, Blue Moon Enterprises, What's Next, Avacon, and Landscapes Unlimited. Contact the show via Skype, Drax Files, Avatar Drax Files, or email radio@draxfiles.com.